Alright YouTube, Stocks by the Numbers, welcome back. And today I wanted to do a very quick update on our favorite company here, and it is Soundhound AI, ticker symbol SOUN, listed here on the NASDAQ. Last update was a little over a week ago, August 15th, and we spoke about how we popped up above this trend line and we're looking pretty good. And obviously we dropped back to 203 and then began to pop up. And interestingly enough, the stock now looks like it's kind of forming a symmetrical triangle, which of course means we can break higher or we could potentially break lower. And I know a lot of people are connecting this with Nvidia reporting earnings today after the close because of course all AI is connected, and apparently our markets, our economy, the Chinese economy, the world economy, apparently every single freaking thing is revolving around Nvidia earnings, which, again, not to be pessimistic, just being more of a realist, that kind of scares the shit out of me, because that means that if for any reason we start to get negative news out of Nvidia, or if it starts to fall off a cliff and actually come back down to earth, which it should have several months ago, then we may be in for a very rough storm coming in ahead of us. But of course, we are not here to predict, we are here to react. And obviously Soundhound right now looking good, sitting here at 243, 244, up 8 cents, a little over 3% here on the day, staying inside of this range, just waiting for those Nvidia earnings, I suppose. But again, overall, a couple of days ago, we can see since we made the video, Soundhound delivers voice AI technology to TOG smart vehicles. This AI voice assist, accessible through natural speech, giving commands to perform tasks, playing music and locking doors. Okay, fantastic. So this is obviously what you want to see with a smaller company like Soundhound, right? Signing new deals, getting new clients, expanding their footprint, and that all leads to an increase in revenue. And that's what I always kept saying about this company. Again, here, going back to this earnings report, earnings were slightly light on the revenue side. However, this was during the AI craze and going into the June and July market rally. So we ended up having a massive explosion to north of $5 there on Soundhound. And then, of course, it broke that trend line, began to sell off. I did updates all along this path here. And then, of course, we had it break this trend line, and then they offered more shares, and boom, it dropped down to $1.80 and has since kind of rebounded. So Soundhound looking relatively stable, holding its own, probably won't go too much lower, even if it does happen to reject and come back down here. You may see potentially sub $2 again, but that's why I'm saying I would rather react than predict, and I would rather see good numbers from Nvidia and watch that stock pop and have confirmation out of this triangle and then step in and buy, as opposed to trying to predict it now, buying it at 240 and change, and then having it drop down to $2 and I'm instantly down 17, 18, 20%, right? So you're definitely better off playing the reaction opposed to the prediction here. But overall, Soundhound as a company, we spoke about it. And, if they keep doing what they're doing, it's probably going to pay off well for everybody in the long term. Switching over here to stock charts, we can see that RSI sitting right now at about 48 1/3, right? So it still has a little bit more room to climb. Top Bollinger Band here on the daily, 256, which is, in my opinion, a pretty key level. And right here on the 200-day is 245, which it got a little above that today and then pulled back and is now sitting below it, right? So if we were trading it and we were looking at it daily, if Nvidia earnings weren't on the table, I'm saying, then obviously we would be looking for this moving average. If we close above it, we can continue to go higher. If we close at it or below it, we could potentially pull back again a little bit. But it really seems like that has nothing to do with it. And again, like I said, every stock and every economy and every market apparently is tied to Nvidia earnings, which is pretty ridiculous and, again, pretty scary in and of itself. But MACD looks like it's slowly climbing over the last couple of weeks after it hit that $1.80 bottom and began to bounce from there. Switching over here on the weekly, we can see RSI about 46 1/3, still has more room to go. This 50-day moving average on the weekly now 257. So now top Bollinger Band on the daily, 256. 50-day moving average on the weekly, 257. And you can see that's where it went last week and had the rejection, and now it's trying to go back and retest that moving average. And we could see even this mid-Bollinger Band of 280. Someone's messaging me like crazy, but we could see, my apologies, we could potentially see this mid-Bollinger Band on the weekly here, 286, but that's going to be your first level. It's going to be that 256, 257 mark if everything goes according to plan. Looks like potentially the MACD is trying to curl here on the weekly, but only time will tell. We need a little bit more time to paint a broader picture. The problem, in my opinion, is Nvidia. And again, I know that the first time I looked at the stock, I, of course, am a realist. I look at the numbers, and the stock was just ridiculously overvalued, but they just continued to take the stock higher because, they're coming in, they're beating analyst expectations. Isn't it amazing how there are so many companies that analysts come out with these expectations for earnings on the EPS and on the revenue side, and they're like just in line, or they just beat, or they just miss, but yet somehow with Nvidia climbing to the moon, apparently taking over the entire world, where everyone, Western world, Eastern world, it doesn't matter. Every single thing apparently is connected to Nvidia earnings. And they're just chunking it up through the roof. So, again, when I first looked at it, I followed up. I did my How'd I Do Let's Review video. It was one that I got, obviously, insanely incorrect. Because, again, they just keep chunking the stock up. And going back to my original point, right, we had a good beat on the EPS side here, and then you're right in line there with revenue expectations. But yet somehow you're nowhere near revenue expectations the following quarter, and the company's able to post a blowout like this, even though it's, again, already overvalued. It just really makes you think, how some companies, again, like I say, estimates will come out for earnings, and then the company will report, and then they'll be like just in line, or they just beat, or they just missed, but not Nvidia. Apparently Nvidia, even on a miss on the EPS side, could come in hundreds of millions of dollars above analyst expectations, and it seems like they're almost doing it consistently as well. Company paying out 4 cents a share on almost a $500 stock. I mean, if I was a holder, I would hope that they would start to increase that dividend a little bit for me. But regardless of that, going back to what I was talking about, right? So this stock, in my opinion, is insanely overvalued. Estimates for this quarter looking at $11.186 billion in revenue for the quarter, which is a massive jump from the $6 and $7 billion that the company reported several quarters before that. So this is going to really dictate, in my opinion, where the stock is going to go. But again, 1.16 trillion when last quarter you posted 7 billion. So obviously, it's a little overextended here, in my opinion. But regardless of what happens, the stock continues to go higher. So I'm assuming that they're probably, at this point it really doesn't even matter what the hell they report. They're probably going to take the stock up to $500. And, I just bring up this realistic view for 2 reasons. Number one, I really hate to be negative, but I really feel like we're in the same environment like we were back in 2000, 2001, or potentially even in 08, 09, where, all of a sudden the shit's going to hit the fan and markets are going to start dropping. And the reason why I bring that up is because stocks go up as an escalator and go down as an elevator. And the point I'm trying to make is, imagine buying this stock at $470 now, going into earnings, and then let's just say they happen to miss earnings, or maybe, profit margins are lower, so the stock starts to tank, they can really chunk this down 30, 50% from where it is now, and it would be 100% justified. But also, more importantly, I'm thinking about, imagine getting in here at 450, 470 a share, and then we really do have a massive market correction or a market sell-off. Even if the company beats earnings, right? Let's just say they beat earnings today after the close. Okay, phenomenal. Great, fantastic. If markets really begin to tank and sell off and drop down, like I always say, the stocks that are going to get hit the most are going to be the stocks that were up the most. And my deepest fear is that people are still piling into this stock, 400 plus, 450 plus a share, and then they just crater this freaking thing back down to $100 or something. And then it's going to take years and years and years for not only even potentially the market, but more importantly for this specific stock to potentially get back up to this insane valuation. Because again, of all the companies we looked at, you probably can't find me another stock that's making, $27 billion for the year and has a market cap north of $1 trillion. All of those other companies we look at with trillion-plus dollar market caps kind of have the revenue to back it up. And again, I know Nvidia revenue has been consistently increasing quarter over quarter, year over year. They're killing it. I know. Those are all great. Those are all positives. But you really can't direct me to another company with a valuation like this. Not off the top of my head, anyway. I know Amazon. A lot of people were saying Amazon's overvalued. They were always looking at the PE. Last time I looked at Amazon, it was only trading, I think, 2.5 times annual revenue. And again, look at Nvidia. $27 billion for the year, $1.16 trillion company. I'm sorry, that's just in no way realistic. That is in no way realistic. So, if this company trades 10 times last year's earnings, you are looking at a $270 billion market cap, which is, roughly what, a 70% drop from here? This is what I'm trying to say. Because again, if the shit really does hit the fan, it's going to be a stock like this that gets absolutely decimated. And God forbid, if we're sitting here one day, we're looking at an $84 Nvidia, I just don't want to hear those terrible stories of, I went all in at $458 a share. What do you think is going to happen? Can we get back up there? Yeah, we could. We could. Might take 7 years, 10 years, but yeah, you could. And that, in my opinion, is one of the downsides of buying a stock at its absolute peak. I'm not talking about share price, right? Oh, it's near the all-time high. I bought it up there, then everything started selling off. No. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about buying shares of this company at a $1.16 trillion valuation. And again, if they decide one day to start bringing it back down to earth, you are going to be holding such a huge bag of frickin' excrement, you're going to be sick to your stomach. And I understand I may be being a little rough on Nvidia, but again, no other company is really trading at this valuation. Let's look at Amazon. Amazon, 1.387 trillion, 100 PE. Okay, so Nvidia is almost the same value of Amazon. They're trading, their PE is about 150% higher than this 106. But if we come down here, look at this. Yes, I understand margins dropped for Amazon here for the year of 2022, but that growth in revenue cannot be denied, right? And we all know, going back years and years and years, I'm sure we all said, I wish I owned Amazon stock, I should just buy Amazon stock, oh, you don't know what to buy, just buy Amazon, everyone shops on Amazon, you'll be fine. And it turns out over the years, you would have been absolutely correct with that very simplistic approach. But my point is, over 500 billion in revenue, right? So almost 20 times the business that Nvidia is doing. And it's only trading 10, 12, 15% more valuable than Nvidia. That's why, unless you own Nvidia, you can't justify it. Just like when I used to talk about Tesla being insanely overvalued. It was the same thing. All the people that came out and said, you're crazy, you don't know stocks, you should stop making videos. What's the end result? They own Tesla. Everyone else who was grounded and level-headed, who listened to the whole video, was like, you know what, I think this guy's onto something, and I think Tesla might tank. And again, I will remind you that video was done at $900 plus a share on Tesla. Then after the 3-for-1 split, it was like whatever, $305 a share or whatever, and then the stock sold off roughly 66% and went all the way down to $100 a share. So that is why sometimes it pays to be the one person who is swimming against the stream. Because eventually, I feel like they all come back down to earth. Right? Now look at the market cap of Apple. 2.836 trillion. Pretty insane, right? That's a valuation. 2.8 trillion. And look at the business that they brought in. Almost $400 billion for the year. Now again, when looking back and comparing to Amazon, you could say Apple is obviously a heck of a lot more overinflated than Amazon. But on $400 billion a year, Apple Computer is trading roughly 7 times annual revenue. 7 times. And now we'll go back to Nvidia, just to put it into perspective. $1.16 trillion valuation, $27 billion last year. So, again, it really all comes down to what you're personally holding. If you're not involved with Nvidia, you probably agree with me. If you are involved with Nvidia, I may potentially get a couple of dislikes on the video, but hey, again, I will never make a video and try to mislead anyone or BS you guys or just tell you what you want to hear so that I can get likes and subscribers and whatnot. That's just really not the type of man I am. And again, like I said, if the shit really hits the fan, holding shares of something like this at 470, and then I'm telling you, if the shit really hits the fan, you could wake up one day, all of a sudden this thing's worth $70, $90 a share, and you own it at 470. So now what the hell do you do? That's what I'm afraid of. Not that Nvidia could beat earnings and pop up to 500. Listen, I hope it happens. Everyone who's watching, anyone who's holding, I wish you the best of luck. I hope the stock goes to $1 million a share. Really, I wish you the best. But again, looking at some of the other large brand name tech conglomerates that we have, no one is trading the way Nvidia is trading. So I do wish you all well, anyone who's involved with Nvidia. I'm just letting out a little bit of a warning, telling you to be careful. Because again, even on a massive increase like this in estimates, I mean, obviously, if they come out and post like 11.5 billion, I mean, that would obviously be phenomenal for the stock. They're going to chunk it up even higher. Understandable. Not really, but understandable. But now, if this company posts like 11 billion, it might get absolutely destroyed. And the problem, again, is that if we look at companies like Soundhound, that you're telling me are tied to the most overinflated, overvalued stock that we have, then what that means is, if Nvidia does happen to miss or announce that cost went up or operating margins went down, anything, that stock may seriously start to tank and chunk down in ways you never thought would be imaginable. And what's going to happen is every single stock tied to it may potentially follow suit. So that's why from here, 240, Nvidia comes out and shits the bed. Sound may break down, not up, out of the symmetrical triangle, and it could come all the way back down here to $1.75, potentially even lower. But, getting a little ahead of myself, but just want to try to cover all bases so you guys can kind of have an idea of anything that could potentially happen here after hours coming into these Nvidia earnings. But yeah, I don't know. It just really, it almost seems too good to be true. I mean, look at this freaking chart, bro. The entire year it was up, right? Look at this. You had this is the weekly. You had 2 weeks that it was slightly down, and then you had these 2 weeks here at the end of July going into August when we started to get a little bit more volatile. So, since the ball dropped in 8-9 months, the stock was only down twice 2 consecutive weeks. Of all these weeks, look at this. We can count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ooh, nice car going by. 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? 10. Over the course of 8 months. 9 months. And of course, again, like a week like this or a week like this was relatively flat or slightly down, and another one here. So you almost can't even count them, right? So the stock really technically only had like 6 or 7 bad weeks over the last 8 or 9 months, which is just insane. Stock going from $140 a share when the ball dropped to almost $500 a share, and we're not even in September yet. It hasn't even been a full 12 months. And the stock is up 250% year to date. That, again, I'm sorry, folks. I know you may be involved. I know it obviously is one of your biggest winners if you're involved. But at the end of the day, let's be realistic. Stocks do not do this. When show me another chart here. Look at this. From the beginning of March to the first week of August, the stock was above the 70 benchmark on the RSI for 5 months straight. That doesn't happen. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Like they say, unfortunately, all good things come to an end. This is why I'm being so adamant and so passionate right now in this video talking about Nvidia. Because, again, I said it would go down and it continued to go higher. Great. If you own it, I'm glad I was wrong. I'm glad you made money. But at the end of the day, like I always say, I know what I know. And what I know is, if you make $27 billion a year, you're not worth $1.2 trillion. It just seems that simple to me. RSI here on the daily sitting at about 60. I mean, look at this. For several months, just forget about touching and retesting the 50-day moving average. This thing barely wanted to break below the mid-Bollinger Band until, of course, we ran into the August volatility, and then they bring it down to the low 400s and basically immediately within a week and a half, bring it back up to 500. So that's why it really seems like every trader, every investor, every hedge fund manager, every economist, and apparently every world economist and investor is bullish and basically has all their eggs in one basket here when it comes to Nvidia. So, again, with a big chunk increasing in revenue estimates, 40-50% higher, 11 plus billion for the quarter, this may potentially be the turning point. And if Nvidia does come in light, we may seriously see a shit show throughout. Forget about the rest of the week. probably for the next 2 to 3 months, it may lead to the downtrend of the markets, and specifically the NASDAQ, probably. But again, this is all theory. I'm more of a realist, more of a grounded person, and I know I look at things a little bit differently than some other people on YouTube and even some other people on Wall Street. But again, like I said, if you and I had a company and we were doing 20-25 billion a year in revenue, no one is going to knock on our door or ring our phone and say, hey, I'll offer you 1.2 trillion for your company. It's just not going to happen. And that's the way I look at it. That's the way I look at it. Because there should be some form of a realistic comparison. And like I said, we brought up Apple, Amazon. These companies are making $400-500 billion a year, and they're not trading at the multiples that Nvidia is trading at. And they were potentially doing it better for longer, if you really think about it. So that's what's scaring the crap out of me. And I really actually hope that I'm wrong here. I really am. Because if they really bring that thing back down to earth, talking about Nvidia, if they really bring that thing back down to earth, all of a sudden it's $100, I am going to feel so bad for all of the uneducated FOMO investors who stepped in at 370, 410, 440, 480, and now literally may either A, have to lose 80% and sell it, or B, you might have to wait 7, 8, 10 years for it to get back to that level. So, again, not trying to be pessimistic, just trying to be a realist. But going back to Soundhound, if everything's connected to Nvidia, then obviously only time will tell what's going to happen, and you should react, not predict. I know I went off on a tangent and I said a lot of shit, so I talked enough. I'm going to stop talking. Once again, this is Stocks by the Numbers. I want to thank you guys for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it down in the comments section. I'm usually very quick to reply. Thumbs up, algorithm helps me get more eyes on the channel. Share the video. And also push the subscribe button if you have not already. That is our handshake agreement. I will do updates on Soundhound. We'll talk about Nvidia. I'll go back and look at stocks that I analyzed 6 months, a year ago. We'll do update videos. If you guys want, you can join the Discord. Discord's in the description. You can come in. No one's right 100% of the time, but I've been trying to make some call-outs there in the Discord for scalp trades or any shorter term trades. If you guys like to be a little bit more active in the market, if you're not necessarily the buy and hold type. But again, I'll do all of that for you. All I ask, push the subscribe button. That is how you help me help you. That is our handshake agreement. But moving forward, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky and they're volatile and they are very uncertain. So I want to wish everyone success. Hope everyone makes a couple of bucks. Thanks for stopping by. See you in the next one.